Hello, nurses, and welcome to another edition of Animaniaugust. Today, we're going to be talking about the month of November 1995. November 1995 is most well known and within a lot of people for being the release date of the original Toy Story. But there's also 4 Animaniacs episodes that are released in that month. First up is an American themed one. Right from the get-go, we got Here's the Flame, which of course is because the flame is going to return in the episode. But first, there's the President's Song, a song about all the presidents from George Washington to Bill Clinton. This, of course, is another one of those very iconic songs that the Animaniacs sing. This one about the presidents. Of course, who can forget that and I really do like this pseudo live action art style. It's great. The song's catchy. I like it. Next up is Don't Tread on Us. Pinky and the Brain decide to replace the Declaration of Independence with their own document declaring Brain Supreme Emperor of the world. Despite Pinky and the Brain having a spin-off on already, they still made a few more segments for this original show. And, and there's just there's a lot of just interesting stuff. And there's one like Elmer Fudd's cameo and just the very definitely debatable take on history. But of course, next up we got The Flame Returns. This one, of course, is a parody of Paul Revere's Ride, and of course, it definitely does. Of course, Paul Revere's Ride is one of the most parodied things, and honestly, this is one about Longfellow writing the poem about it, rather than the flame replacing Paul Revere. There's also some cameos of some of the Animaniacs characters. And notably, the girl feathers appear, but the good feathers don't. As cameos. Next up, episode 76. Get a variable line. Tarzan and Janie, a reference to the Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan series. Give me the works. The Warners conflict a hot dog vendor. This is one of those cartoons that, it's just really the Warners torturing some guy who really doesn't really deserve it, but at least, if they're aware of it. Dar refuses to do the script and they leave the cartoon rather abruptly. Buds and Olds. It seems like they've really. This is definitely one of the better Puns miniseries, just because, well, it's a movie parody. Of course, MGM's iconic 1939 adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. And instead of The Wizard of Oz, there's Pinky and the Brain. And Brain is the wizard. Hercules Unwound. A parody of the classic fable, Hercules. More specifically, the 1939 movie, Hercules Unchained. There's definitely a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of characters. So this is a character of Orson Welles, which, well, the Brain is also based on Orson Welles. But Zeus is not voiced by movies from Mars, but rather Earl Burren, who was a voice actor more well known for his roles for other things, not necessarily Animaniacs. And funnily enough, in the European Portuguese dub, Zeus' voice actor in that was also voiced Zeus in the European Portuguese dub of Disney's Hercules. So that's pretty funny. And also, Medusa is the character of Joan Rivers. Wheel of Morality. This is it. The final ever Wheel of Morality. This is actually made up of redubbed footage from the very first Wheel of Morality. So, it loops back. The moral of the story is to be or not to be. That is the pencil. This actually aired prior to the one we talked about earlier, but I'm looking at all these episodes by their packaging dates, not necessarily the ones where they're aired. And and the stinger at the end is actually the first time that the show references the show Friends, which they would make a parody of later on. Episode 77. It starts with another new line, Nova King, which has Dr. Scratches there being scared to take a shot. This pun for hire. This is a parody of Fillmore cliches, and this is, and you know how I said earlier that Minerva only, this wouldn't be the last we see Minerva, despite the fact she only had 2 cartoons that started her. Well, this is one of those cartoons where she reappeared as funnily enough, she appears in the Warners. Just say, Minerva demands that the Warners give her the bird, and Dot says, "We can't. This is a family show." Yeah, they really. Yeah, they really. Yeah, This is at least the second time that they made a flip the bird. Actually, this is, I think, the third time that they made a flipping the bird joke in the show. First, it was the Beethoven one, and then the Miles Standish one. Now this, uh, and Freakazoid also makes a cameo here, and Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen make cameo appearances at the end, and they say the stuff that DreamWorks are made of, which is both a reference to the Maltese Falcon and the newly formed movie studio of DreamWorks. And 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 funny thing is that Nell Nurse appears to say that she claims the statue in the name of Golf and Western, which, of course, at the time of the episode was called Viacom, not Golf and Western. And now it's called simply Paramount Skydance, after the merger that occurred recently. Next up is Star Trek. Parody of Star Trek. This one involves the Warner is helping a very caricatured Star Trek. Basically, a whole lot of Star Trek parodies by the captain is fat and obese. There's bathrooms for the xenomorphs. And they just and there's also and they also throw in just reference, general sci-fi stuff besides Star Trek and that alien reference. Oh no, it's a pretty funny cartoon. Even if you never watched Star Trek, it's a funny send-up of just sci-fi in general. Go Fish. Wacko plays Go Fish for himself, but becomes a sore loser because he accuses himself of cheating. It's just kind of one of those cartoons that was just kind of really just trying to experiment with Wacko Warner, which is something they really did. And then, of course, we get to basically the only interstitial segment that, really survived the Kids WB days. The Randy Beeman kid. Randy Beeman faked his own death with some ketchup in place of blood, and that was the story. And of course, multiplication. It's a song about multiplication. Gecko sings about multiplying 47 by 83. And this is definitely a parody of just the overly educational songs in general. As the punchline is that Yakko says that you can multiply using a calculator. Basically, the joke is that why bother learning multiplication when you could just use a calculator? It's kind of the ending. That's kind of the punchline for that. But of course, we get to our final one. We get Meet Mark Twain with Mark Twain. But let me tell you this: none of the cartoons themselves feature Mark Twain. He's just on the variable line. You're not going to see Mark Twain in any of the actual episodes here. The Sound of Waters. In this parody of The Sound of Music, the Waters get a new nanny called Prunella Flundergust, who is a parody of Julie Andrews' version of Maria von Trapp from the classic film The Sound of Music. And it's just funny because, you know, it's definitely a parody of how overly just happy this film is, with like the Warners constantly getting annoyed by her singing, and there's also a lot of funny gags, like and of course there's definitely a lot of funny gags here, like and like Mary Poppins being the new nanny after this, and Dot referencing Dot when and Dot saying that Prunella should visit Goof Troop instead, or Yakko's nightmare about flubbing the lyrics to Yakko's World, which wouldn't even be the last time that they reference Yakko's World in this show. This is also apparently the longest that Yakko's ever said. That is interesting on its own, really. Finally, we get the Yabba Dabba Boo. Chicken Boo is the script director for the Flintstones movie. Everything, of course, goes great, except for one scheduled writer, of course, per the Chicken Boo norm. But when a man arrives bearing chicken products for lunch, of course, Boo gets terrified and resists himself as a chicken when his eyes fall off. And really, the thing is that you know, the thing is that it's not real. Is that the disappointing thing really about this one is that it's not really a parody of the Flintstones movie itself. It's literally a parody of the production of it. There's no whole lot of Flintstones gags, or they're not going to reference the entire running past the same trees a million times, or anything like that. Or anything about the movie. There's no Rosie O'Donnell references, no John Goodman references, no references to Hal Berry as the secretary. It really is just a reference to production. Honestly, it's fine, I guess. Well, that wraps up today's edition of Animaniaugust. And, well, we'll see tomorrow, the start of 1996. For now, goodbye, nurse.